Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Wrap Show, rounded out all things Zwift over the last week. We got racing, we got events, tech, fashion, and maybe we'll take a look at some Zwift power rankings as well. Nathan Guerra here, Anna Russell next to me, coming out of New Zealand, episode number 8. Thursday, September 8th, 2022. And another bombshell, another big week in all things Zwift, obviously. Let's talk real quickly. What are we going to be doing with this episode? We're going to chat a little bit about what we've been up to in racing over the last week. I always like to look at what have we been doing as far as racing or training as related to our Zwift. Zwift has hardware. What? The Zwift Hub, not to be confused with ZwiftHub.com, which is something totally different than hardware. It's a software and website that looks at things that have to do with Zwift, but they're actually getting involved in the hardware space. We'll go over that as well as a whole lot of other things with our guest today, which is Eric Schlange, coming from ZwiftInsider.com. Of course, we've got fashion of the week with a little homage to, well, we'll leave that one alone. You guys will have to tune in for the rest of that. But we've got, obviously, related to some more levels coming. Garage pick of the week, as well as the ZRL coming up next week and Zwift Power Rankings. Lots to talk about. And back for episode number 8. How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. I've already seen the chat's been lit up with people trying out camera number 3, and so very excited. People in the community giving that one a shot. I actually tried a whole bunch of different camera angles on a TTT last night, which was fun to try. Do want to shout out early at the top of the show that obviously for all of our Commonwealth listeners out there, which I know there are a lot from the UK and New Zealand being one of the Commonwealth countries, that Queen Elizabeth II has passed away overnight, which is really sad. 70 years of a reigning monarch. That's been my whole lifetime. I've known no one different. Have always tuned into her Christmas message every year with the family. So, yeah, a bit of a sad day for all of us, but we will keep going on with the show. And yes, I've got to say, super excited to have Eric on. I know there's a bit of a drinking game out there that I mention Eric's name or Zwift Insider a lot. So I'm pumped to talk to him in person about all the things that have happened in Zwift over the last 2 weeks, which I feel like has been a lot, like the most that I've ever seen.
I'd have to agree with you. This past week, I don't know if I've seen this much stuff drop when it comes to all things Zwift updates. And now we've got a whole nother area. Now we're talking about Zwift hardware. There's been, yeah, pretty much. And it's all coming to like culmination around a ton of events that are also launching along with series. And I mean, it's like, I've never seen Zwift season blow up with so much activity going on from the platform and the community all at the same time. So we'll see what comes out of that. It's going to be, I think, a new Zwift season of a lot of generation. It's going to generate a lot, I think, when it comes to active communities, racing, training, content. So it'll be interesting what all pops up over the next 2 to 3 months, I think, especially with Zwift Racing this next week, or starting next week. Now, what have we been up to for the last week? Anna,
Yeah.
you're getting ready for some Eversteam, but I think you were also talking about the Zwift Racing League next week and kind of prepping or tapering for that a little bit.
Yeah, I think yeah, I had this big goals of doing all these Everesting efforts, and then my work life got really crazy, and I actually had to spend those days working, which was really sad. But got out and did trail running instead, which takes a little bit less time, and I could get outside. It's been beautiful here as we're coming into spring. Racing wise, I finished off the Sisu KQOM challenge, which was crazy. The last race, it was on Countryside Tour or something in Makuri, and it's you get timed on your fastest time segment up all of the KQOMs, and this one was the temple climb, which was dirt, and I'm in the pens and no one is on gravel bikes. I was like, what is going on? So I'm like quickly literally googling, like going onto Zwift Insider, looking at what this course is. I was like, have I got it wrong? Is it not the dirt climb? And then I couldn't figure it out with like a minute to go. My hands were too nervous. So I was just like, oh, what the hell? I'll just ride my gravel bike. And no, it was a gravel climb. So won the race and took third in the series
Just
because of
walked
that
away
result.
with it because nobody was
Yeah,
informed. Like, I mean, there's this. Wow, I guess the drinking game is paying
yeah.
off at this point,
It was
right?
crazy. It was
So,
crazy. But I did a personal record up that climb, best time, best power. And I've had that on a lot of rides lately. And I'm getting pretty excited for ZRL and also the Premier League sort of Grand Prix stuff coming up. I feel very much in form, and my power numbers are all, every time I do a race, they seem to be just getting better and better. So I don't know where the cap is going to be,
where's
but I'm
this
sure I'll
coming
figure that
from?
out.
What's the top secret sauce here? What's happening?
Do you know what it is? I think it's not having a newborn who I'm up with like 3 times a night. I think it's just
Wait,
getting
how
that
long has
solid
it
eight
been
hours of
since you
sleep.
haven't had a newborn, though? That's my other question. Because,
Well, I think it's been 3 months now of sleeping through the night.
but you're getting personal records too, right? So, like,
Oh, yeah, true.
prior to
Yeah, yeah.
newborn, I'm wondering, like, was there like just a rhythm of newborns over and over and over again? Were there big
Oh,
gaps? I
well, it
mean,
is the
what's
third. Yeah. And I think, to be honest as well, I went out to my Saris teammates, the guys and the girls, and said, hit me with your like favorite sessions. And so I've been doing these sessions. I did David Talbot's one on Monday called the Talbot Terror. And like all of these sessions, I'm spiraling into the, a spiral of death because they're so hard. And they're like, yeah, that's what you want. They should be so hard that you're failing at them. I was like, oh, these are like insane. So I think maybe that's helped a little bit as well. And not over racing. So just pick sort of 2 races a week that I want to do and just hit those well.
Yeah, I remember when we first started the podcast back in July, you talked specifically about that, about changing up to be really disciplined, about how you were going to be using your time efficiently and not over racing and making sure that you were. And it sounds like you put some pretty big goals on your plate as well. And having those in view and keeping yourself disciplined sounds like it's really paying off. And then grabbing from the best Swifters there are, some of the best Swifters in the world of Zwift racing and kind of picking and choosing from what they're handing you, that's got to be a pretty good platter of workouts and gain some fitness, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I look at, what you're doing, Nathan. I see, now that I'm on Twitch and I see what you're doing. I mean, you've been doing it, you've had the secret sauce for a while. Like, I don't see you over racing. I see you doing like specific workouts. And I think you're kind of nailing that. I mean, you've got some pretty good results that you've been hitting as well lately.
Yeah, not bad. I'm surprised at my form actually. I was the first half of the season there were some other focuses and stuff, and then going into August, the big first test was like, okay, let's get into shape, like really, really get into shape, focus things in here. And a lot of July, I just said, okay, we're not just gonna race, we're gonna actually train. And then the Order Shore result, obviously we've talked about it for a few weeks now, but it was really great. The week before that, I actually outright won the state series race here by over a minute and a half. I was like, what? Whoa. And so, yeah, you're right. Having that organized training sessions that aren't just racing, but then kind of like the Zwift races are icing on the cake, or I use them for something really specific. But at the same time, I do kind of have to treat Zwift races like a like if you're into Training Peaks or
Mm,
coaching or anything, I have to treat them as a C plus, maybe even B race on my priority of racing calendar.
mm,
Because if I don't, and I try and treat them like workouts, for me, I end up kind of ruining my timing of some of my efforts, or they have to be short enough that they don't affect my threshold training or they don't affect something else. And it's like I have to just fit them in the right way. So tonight I'm doing the TTT and I need threshold work. And in the back of my head, I'm like, would it be better if I just focused on some threshold? But we're going long enough. And I think the polls we're doing, I think it's out and back again. So it's got a mixture of
mm.
everything, right? We're going up the volcano. We're doing the reverse KOM, hilly. So it's got a mixture for like 50 minutes or so. If we do well in the A's, that I think we'll get a good threshold workout. And I kind of need that. So this one I'm making an excuse for. But yeah, as you can see, if you're hanging out on the Twitch channel, if I do go live with my workouts, which I probably should do more, it's just I tend to do longer, really painful suffering workouts, and I mean, speak to that, and then trying to talk, you can't really talk to anybody. So then you're just like, it starts out with a lot of viewers, and then like slowly they're like, this guy's not saying literally anything. Like he's just, I mean, that power numbers are maybe impressive, I hope, or whatever, but it's like we're just watching this guy suffer and maybe get mad for a while.
Yeah, it's funny that the twitches with a workout because you're right. You kind of just end up going into the zone, and you're like, oh, there's chat there. Okay, all right. And then, but someone did say to me, "Can you turn off your noise gate because I want to hear your suffering?" I was like, okay, like
That's interesting that you
obviously.
say that. Okay, this is another topic actually, because there is times where I'm like, wow, that's interesting that they leave it open. Like I think some streamers do it on purpose. That you can hear the
Mm,
trainer in the background, and like it seems like they almost aim their, or it's just kind of a coincidence that the way everything aimed in their audio environment. But some audio environments, I'm like, that's the perfect mixture of their trainer in the background and them kind of like
yeah,
breathing a little bit. And
yeah,
sometimes it's like,
yeah.
sometimes it's just out of control. Like, oh my gosh, this is not proper. We need to turn this off. Yeah.
So I think, yeah, well, I've turned the noise gate off now and they're hearing everything. I mean, the
Oh
tiny
man.
races, which I mean, we'll talk to Eric about, I did again in the weekend. And those ones are horrific for like breathing heavily into the mic. I'm like hanging over my handlebars going, why? And so I'm like, well, at least they get some entertainment. We do have a lot of people in the chat, and I do want to shout out Pookie because I tuned into his stream to watch your Wednesday Worlds, and he did some great chats about you and all of the races out there, and really shouted out your channels. And he obviously knows a lot about Twitch, and he said to me, "I am now a true Zwift Twitcher because I got a troll the other night." Added a little bit of a dampener to my mood, I've got to say. But if that makes me a
I
real
want to know what
Twitcher,
kind of troll, like how bad was this troll?
oh,
That's
it's
what I
not
want to
that
know.
bad.
Okay, gotcha. I mean,
He
I've
just he
gotten
came in and said it was just like why, pretty much like along the vein of like why would you be riding inside? This is so stupid.
gotcha. See, I have a couple of really interesting ones that like come back. They have like a rhythm of return. Like when they like one of them comes in and like trolls me that they're gonna like donate millions of dollars to me, and it's like always the same. So it's like an actual person with the same username, and he's always like, "Do you have any needs in your life?" And I'm like, "What? Like, are you talking about?" Like, and then I'm like, "Sure, I need a house. I don't know. Like, what do you want
Oh
to
my
give me?"
gosh.
And it's almost, and like we get into this conversation that I'm like, what's this guy doing? Like, I don't get, anyways, there's a lot of
Oh
different, and I get these kind of, you get these troll personalities too that are like that. And then there's just straight up trolls and they come in or
yeah.
bots. I mean, how many bots have you had come through that
Oh,
are
I
like
don't have a lot of
offering you?
bots.
Oh, I've got
Oh
bots coming
god.
through offering you like, I don't even know. Like,
Oh, a lot.
yeah, a lot. That's what I'll just say. Offering you a lot. I'll leave it at that.
But this guy, it was good. We ended up actually chatting the whole time because he came in with that comment, and I was like, well, if you can devise a way for me to ride outside with a baby asleep at my house, like, tell me how I do that, buddy. And then after that, we had a big chat about a whole range of topics, but I could just tell every comment he had was always like really controversial. And so I was just like, okay, like, yeah, I'll take that extreme comment and let's like talk about the topic in a sort of less heated way. So it actually made the session go pretty fast.
Yeah, it's a good way to do it. A lot of times I try to change the tone of it because it can come across, some people are just looking to have a fight. They're looking
Ryle.
for a fight. Yep. That's the internet world keyboard warriors. But okay,
Oh, I had
here's one
something.
topic.
Oh,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Anna.
I do have. Oh, this is a different topic, but I had one thing for you, and it was on the back of my mind. I forgot to write it down, but it's just come back. I had in one of the tiny races my first proper instance of someone using sticky watts.
Ouch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was, and I've actually never had it before. It did really kind of rile me up. I mean, it riled me up probably because my heart rate was skyrocketing and those races are so intense. But yeah, one of the races finished up the first early slopes of Epic Climb, and he came to the front. I was like, that's cool. And then it was like 12 watts a kg, 1.5 watts a kg, all the way up that bit. I was like, well, that's dumb.
Yeah, I had someone similar, like a fan. They might actually be watching the podcast. I'm not sure, but he would jump into our Kiss 100 races or something. I think it was Kiss 100 races, and specifically on the reverse KOM. Actually, I remember him going to 10 watts. He couldn't hang on the sharp part of the reverse KOM because I think it was a course where we were doing the cliffside. So instead of going all the way up, we would just do that first part, and then it takes the left-hand turn where you could go to the
Yes.
jungle or go up, and it's like
Mm.
a three-way fork. And we go left on the cliffside. Well, that whole way up that, he would go to like 10 watts per kilogram, 0, 10 watts per kilogram, 0, like every other second. And I called him out in chat, and he actually was like, I can't hang on, I have to. And he like knew what it was too. And like fully like admitted, he was like, I'm just a fan, please. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, oh man. I felt like,
No.
I felt conflicted about it, like a little bit. Like I was kind of like, thanks, cool. Can you go away now? Like, is what I'm thinking.
Oh, no. And then I also had in the pens as well, people like it used to be like one person. Now it was like 5 or 6 people being like, rate my fashion. It's like, okay. And then one guy being like, I've really put in some effort today because I saw that you were in the race. So can I be your fashion in the field? And I was like, yeah, I'll get a picture of you. And then I like, honestly, I just couldn't even like find the camera angle 0 to find him to get a picture. But then he messaged me afterwards and was like, what did you think? And I was like, wow, people are really into this. So this is really cool. I saw, it'll be later on the show, I saw someone even tagged you on Twitter with their fashion in the field. So
yeah,
we're getting
we got a Twitter fashion in the field coming in later in the program here as well. I mean, it's getting pretty big. Hashtag View 3 is definitely turning into a thing. I mean, there's all kinds. We gotta love it. You know, the other day I gotta say, you know, this is turning into the Tron bike with Zwiftcast. This is kind of the View 3, what view
Oh.
you use, what view you don't use. But I did use View 1 the other day, and I did see some advantages to it, I gotta admit. So, but I've been doing AIM Labs. Jump in with me for AIM Labs with any of the A pace partners. We did it here in-house today, and the goal is to go sub 3 watts per kilogram with the pace partners, and you figure out which view works the best for that, or changing views either. Obviously, I'm using 3, and I'm trying to go sub 3 watts per kilogram. I hit 3 watts per kilogram today with a couple of jumps in there to try and drop some guys that didn't know how to hold wheels. But AIM Labs, that's where it's at on, I'm calling it AIM Labs, which is essentially, you know, when it comes to first-person shooter games, there's softwares out there that instead of playing the game, you just practice on your aim in these games, and it's kind of like a training
Cool.
thing. So yeah, that's how I'm using the pacer bots lately, is to keep things as low as I possibly can amongst them. And it's been working pretty
Nice. I
well.
like that. That's really cool. I actually use the Pacerbot sometimes when I'm trying to figure out different bikes to use on different areas, just because, and I'll talk to Eric about it. He has all the bike speed tests, but you and I have opinions on what bikes, that's a speed test over a whole course, whereas sometimes certain parts will actually suit other bikes. So it can be a bit more strategic. I do want to, back to the camera angle. I, in the TTT last night, was actually using camera angle 0, the production camera angle, a lot. Reason being is the TTT I do, it's kind of sort of sweet spot stuff for me. I'm not, you know, extremely pushing, and we've got a really wide range. And so I was using it to find places in the group to plug gaps. So I was kind of a floating rider. So I was like, oh, there's a bit of a gap there between 6 and 7. I'll just drift back, fill that. And I could kind of see from that hovering camera angle where to go, you know, fill the gap. I liked it. It was, I ended up staying on it for almost the whole race. So it's quite cool.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up another topic now, and this is just a topic for the community. I'm going to throw this out there. I was doing the AIM Labs this morning with Pace Spot A. I was out there with Constance, and RC Ivany came in chat, and a few others, and they said they had a similar experience of a yo-yoing effect, specifically maybe only with pacer bots. I'm wondering if it's happening only with View 3. I'm wondering if people are noticing something different with the draft out there recently. Now, I know this is very subjective, right? That I'm asking the whole community to give me a subjective, and usually if you're not familiar with the draft or, you know, offhand experience, oh, I don't see anything, or yes, oh, definitely, and the draft is always off for a certain percentage of the community, it feels like. But I definitely, in my experience with the draft, I just feel like something is really different lately, and I don't know if it's just with the pacer bots because I pay most attention then, but if you are seeing something, let me know. I want to know if you're getting this yo-yoing effect, or if it feels like your avatar isn't placing itself directly into what would be called the sticky draft. Like if maybe the sticky draft has really changed a lot lately because I feel like my
Mm.
avatar is dancing around more rather than getting placed right behind who I'm trying to draft. And I can't just slot in based off of my watts right now. If you're experiencing that, let me know in the comments or send us something on social medias because I'm trying to decipher if I'm picking up on something behind the scenes that might actually be going on. Anna, are you experiencing anything like that?
I know I saw you mention it. I think it was one of your streams I was watching. So I was paying attention. I always find it hard on the TTT because you're on time trial bikes, so your view is a bit different anyway. I can't say I've noticed anything huge. I did the Get Rollin' race, and yeah, I don't know. No, I didn't. It would be absolutely minor if it was anything for me.
It might
I
just be
didn't
a pacer
particularly
bot
notice
thing
anything.
too, or I'm just having a subjective angry experience in view 3 and I need to change up my cameras.
There we go. By the way, I call view 3 the bum view. After a while, I'm like, I'm sick of seeing all these bums.
It is
So
the bum
I
view. It's
just
the bum view 100%.
yeah.
100%. I mean, it's the in real life view too, right? So, now what's the teeth health and
Oh,
Zwifting? What's going on with this topic?
okay. I went to the dentist yesterday and like I've got a couple of cavities. That's what you call it over there, right? Cavities in my teeth.
What do you call them
And
over
I was like,
there? What do you call them?
holes, holes, holes in my teeth. And I got
Oh.
really like
Wait,
sad
wait.
about
Is
it.
there
And
anywhere else in the world, chat, people out there that they just say holes or this cavities? Like, I'm really wondering now. Okay, go ahead, Anna. Sorry. That's really interesting.
And so the dentist was like, "Look, are you eating lots of sugar? Are you having heaps of treats?" I was like, "No, not really." Like, I couldn't really think. I mean, I have treats, but I wouldn't say like excessively. And then I was like, Zwifting. I've always lately been putting like sports drink in my drink bottle and like
Mm.
sometimes having like lollies instead of anything else on the bike because I was like, "Oh, yum, lollies. I'll have them while I'm racing." And then I was like, actually, because I'm on Zwift like 4 times a week, that's like a lot of sport drink and candy for like my usual diet. And I was like, oh, this is terrible. And so now he said, stop drinking that. And I am like, well, what do people do then? Like, I guess this, we need to probably have a like nutritionist on the show, but what do you do? I mean, the races are like 45 minutes. Once you warm up, warm down, it's like an hour or so. I mean, do you have anything? What do you do? Are you drinking like sugary stuff
Yeah.
or you just go
No, I
water
don't.
and
So, well, I'm, and if you've heard me speak on any podcast at all on this topic, I am a strong believer in control of the osmolality of your stomach. So the osmolality of your stomach is of the solution that's in your stomach with whatever liquids that you're putting in needs to be a very specific percentage for it to have the fastest uptake of sugar into your bloodstream.
mm,
And so I am a strong proponent of water in the bottles, sugar in the best uptake source, and usually a gel. And so I tend towards gels or blocks, and so those are sources I can get pretty quickly past my mouth. And I'm not like sucking on a lolly or something like that where it's just like sitting on your teeth forever, Anna. Like,
yeah.
so that might be
I
it. And then
know.
also the sugary drink then is gonna coat your teeth more than something that just goes
Mm,
straight down into your gut. And then I also like having the control of the osmolality so that I can get it to that very low percentage a lot quicker. Because if what's in your bottle isn't water, you have no control. And if you've messed that up, or if it's hotter in the room or in the outdoor ride, if it's hotter than you were expecting it to be, and you need a lower percentage on your solution and have it be more water than it is whatever that sugar source is, you're screwed. You're stuck with whatever in your bottle and you can't change it. So I like
yeah.
having that control factor. So my suggestion as a coach is always head towards something that you can have control. And I always tend toward, unless I need a protein for something longer than an hour and a half, I always just tend toward a gel because it's the quickest uptake and I can change osmolality real quick. The digestion level is really low because of blocks are funner and it's a little bit harder substance. So, I'll do those a lot too. But if I were like being strict, gel all the way, water in the bottle. So that's my solution.
Okay. I mean, is because then I asked the Saris guys as well. I like what you've said. I'm definitely throwing away the sport drink. That's just rubbish now. And then, but do you need a gel for the short races? Like, I'm thinking sort of Zwift tiny race format, ZRL, 45 minutes. Do you need a gel? I think sometimes I just use it as a crux, like, oh, there's a big session coming up, like a big hill. I'm going to take a gel. Like if we look at the race coming up next week, Climbers Gambit, as we're heading into Epic, I'd be like, take a gel. But I think it's a mental thing.
So my opinion, it depends on the level at which tiny races, definitely because it's 4, right? It's 4 and you got 2 and then 2. And in between, in between the first 2, or even at the start beforehand, depending on how much I've eaten. And if you've eaten so much that you're still full, you ate too close to your races, first of all. And so if things aren't already digested and loaded into your muscles, then like, well, fine, don't take a gel. And if you're still digesting during the races, I'm like, whoa, what were you even doing with your pre-race meal? But I mean, I get it if it's early morning or whatever, and you just had your oatmeal.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, my suggestion a lot of times is prior to super hard efforts, put sugar in 10 minutes before, because the bloodstream is reloading glycogen during the effort. So you're never going to, at the levels that you're racing during any race, you're never going to be able to reload unless it's like a 24-hour race or race across America. Then you are doing full reloads continually all the time. But in the time windows that we're talking about here, you are supplementing the glycogen that's already in the muscles, right? So the main source of glycogen, the main source of sugar, is what's already in the muscles. It's the supplementation that's buffering the use of that that's in the bloodstream. So putting sugar in the bloodstream during those hard efforts is going to supplement and make you have that nitrous oxide, which is what your glycogen is. It's that up and over the top when you go red.
Yeah.
You run out of that, you ain't going red no more, right? And so my opinion is, yeah, you can do too much, but if it's outside of a 20-minute full-on effort, and you are probably doing about 20 minutes of full-on effort in those first 2, then you're going to need a little bit of a supplement. The moment you get outside of an hour, it's over, man. Like you need, because especially in Zwift racing, they're about a threshold effort. You only have 1 hour of glycogen in your legs that, and so, a lot of times TT
don't worry, I don't do much.
Anyways, that's long-winded. I know. You asked the question. You asked the trigger question, Anna.
Oh, it's good.
You asked the trigger question, and I'm like,
I triggered you. I triggered you. But I think, okay, I'm going to take your advice. I think I'm looking ahead at, like, say, Zwift Premier League racing. It's about 6 a.m. my time. I think I'm just going to have to bite the bullet, get up at 5, have some like oatmeal, have a coffee, save a gel for later in the race, and try and just get the gel so far down my throat that it doesn't go anywhere near my teeth.
I mean, there's also during the race then too, you are supplementing for the next effort. If you completely drain the muscles, they also have to reload themselves. So the sugar you put in during your efforts is also for efforts the next day. If you get completely drained, that means your efforts the next day aren't going to be as good, because it actually takes more than 24 hours to reload your muscles when they get completely depleted. So there is that as well. So anyways, there's the coaching. We're like way down the road.
Okay, let's go. Let's get Eric on.
Shout out to Sisu World's coming up. Anything you want to say to that was also on the list of topics?
Yes, we will have more information on that when we get closer to the time. But basically, mark your calendars. The UCI in real life World Champs happening in Wollongong, Australia, and there'll be lots of celebration stuff on Zwift around that. And I know that Sisu, who've been running some great events, they'll be doing an event one weekend, which I think will be sort of around the weekend next weekend. The sort of 8th. Let me have a look quickly. It's like the 17th, 18th, and then the next weekend, the 24th, 25th. So we're doing a road race, scratch race one weekend, and then the next weekend, a time trial. So they're sort of celebrating Wollongong World Champs, get amongst it. It will be quite fun. I like those sort of World Champs themed rides.
Heck yeah, pretty awesome. Looks like we can get, I was about to put Eric's beard right into the middle of the entire video for a second as he was fixing his camera. Eric Slangy, welcome to the program. If you don't know who Eric Slangy is, I don't know what you have been doing with your life. Are you a Zwifter? Are you even a Zwifter? Zwift Insider, founder of Zwift Insider. Short history, very quickly, for those that might be just tuning in and have no idea what Zwift Insider is, Eric, and how you got involved with Zwift, like the 1 minute, 30-second version.
Sure. I joined Zwift just before it came out of beta. there were a lot of people asking the same question on the Zwift Riders Facebook group, and I decided I would start a blog that answered those questions and the questions that I was having as well. So I started the blog December 2015, and it got popular. And eventually, I went to Zwift and asked them if they could partner with me in some way, help me put more time into it, and they did. So they support the blog somewhat. Got a great relationship with them, and it's just a website that's dedicated to all things Zwift. We've got something like 3,000 plus articles at this point that live on that site, covering all things racing, interviews, hacks, news, big events, all that stuff. Anything Zwifty, I'm happy to write about it. So that's Zwift Insider.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. Early on, we met Eric, and it's been super awesome seeing how much that it has grown. It is the go-to spot for anything and all things Zwift. And if you want a very clear, concise, and very well put together article on any question you have, you can pretty much just type it in the top of the search box. And I just put in like sometimes like a one word, like what's the, I don't know, fastest this, or usually it's fastest. For me, it's like fastest. It's always like trying to find the fastest thing. But I mean, you throw it in there, and that search will usually bring up at least 3-4 articles that are very pointed too. I have a question. You don't seem to duplicate. Like, it's like you really hit the nail on the head with each one. Is that intentional? That there's not, a lot of duplication happening?
Yeah, I try not to duplicate. I try to create articles that are kind of definitive articles on a particular topic. And when news happens, I will either write a totally fresh article or I'll update that old one. But yeah, I don't want a bunch of duplicate articles that cover the same thing.
That's pretty amazing. How many articles did you say then? And no duplicate? Like,
you know what? I'll tell you.
Yeah, that'd be
3,261.
Oh,
3,261, and keeping
current
an
number
eye
of published
on.
articles.
And you know what's interesting, everybody, is I've been working with Eric for a long time, for a while, here and there. And in recent time, a lot more with Wednesday Worlds. He's been getting involved, and I've got to say, when I approach Eric with an idea, I watch his brain go. And now I'm recognizing, does this duplicate? Does this make sense for what the platform is going to have? Is this going to be quality content? I love that you've really taken that seriously, and people can land here and go that they're going to get something awesome out of their experience and their reading.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, there are so many topics that could be written about. And I've got a folder called posts to do in my email, and I send myself emails when I think of stuff. And there's like 500 emails in that list. So there's never a shortage between current Zwift news and just whatever's coming in and other ideas for crazy things, like some crazy drafting test I could do, or who knows what. There's plenty of fodder.
I think I've got to say thanks to you. This is going to sound really weird, but Zwift Insider inserts itself into my dreams most nights, because I lie there in bed and I have my iPad. And I'm supposed to be like reading a book on my Kindle on my iPad, but undoubtedly I'm like, is there a new article on Zwift Insider? And I'll like go on, and my husband's like, are you on Zwift Insider again? I'm like, yes. And then I last night I had, because I was reading all about, which we'll discuss, all about the hardware news. And last night I just had this really bizarre dream that Zwift rang me and announced to me this like specific trainer, but just for me, that I would get to use it. So I know, so my whole dream.
The Anna trainer.
Yeah.
Where's the Anna trainer going to fit in the... Now, what did it look like? That's the real question. Whether or not its fashion was right.
Yeah, well, I think maybe we go into the discussion now about the hardware. It was actually that Tron bike, the one that they kind of teased out a while back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I just got overly way too excited about that bike and pictured it in my sort of pain cave and was like, okay, and then I'll get those like Philips LED lights and put them up, and we're just going to make this like a really lit up crazy pain cave. And I think when I saw the announcement come out this week, I'm not going to lie, I sort of went, oh, I'm disappointed. But then I thought about it a lot more, and I was like, actually, it's really smart. Like, business-wise, in my opinion, I was like, this is a much smarter decision than going for a full Tron bike modular design that, to be honest, I think would really just benefit the racers and the people who are really, really into Zwift, not the masses. I mean, I'm keen for your thoughts though, Eric.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was a place for the Zwift. I think it was called the Zwift Bike, is what that trainer that may never be released was called. I think there was a place for it pre-COVID, and I think there will be a place for it in the future. I don't think now's the time for it. The other market I think that it really reaches was the Peloton bike market. The people who are willing to drop $2,000, $3,000 on a full solution. I think that's who Zwift was really targeting with that. The people who just want something turnkey and they're willing to pay for it. But I don't think that's needed now. I think the Hub, I think their new trainer hits exactly what's needed. That's an affordable.
The idea, great article, by the way, all about the new Zwift Hub. It really gets every one of the key points. But at the end of the article, and I'll hit the end thought here first, is that, you just talked about why this trainer in this market and what kind of disruption there might be or not be, and what is it looking to accomplish. And Eric Min, the Zwift CEO and co-founder, there's no doubt that Zwift Hub is going to disrupt the market, and we think that's great news for the customer. When we started on our hardware journey, it was important that the hardware serve the primary purpose of accessing and elevating the core game experience. Getting set up on Zwift hasn't been an easy process. It can be hard to know exactly what equipment you need to Zwift, and that equipment can be costly. Zwift Hub will help us deliver our mission to make more people more active more often by making it both easier and more affordable to get set up on Zwift. So I think with that quote from Eric Min, I really think that the aim of this trainer, of what they're saying, is to make sure that the accessibility and the hurdles, the friction on Zwiftcast, we'd said there's a lot of friction to getting involved here. You had to be, all the beta users were super techie people who knew how to set up a power connection to Zwift and know how to get things moving. And, what ways have they kind of tried to make this more accessible to the everyday users? My question.
I think the cassette thing is a big thing that I'm surprised more companies don't do. It's amazing to me, like even the new Ceres ships without a cassette. I mean, I would say 90%.
Today I had the cassette issue. I had the cassette issue today. Yeah. Rode this morning, and I'm removing a cassette for 15 minutes and throwing it on my other bike to go for a ride to get somewhere because I had to ride somewhere. So yeah, I'm with you there. 100%.
And wouldn't you say that probably 90 to 95% of cyclists can't remove a cassette? That's not something they'll ever do. That'd be my guess. So just that simple hurdle of going, here, pick your thing. We're even going to give you a guide so you can know which cassette you need before you make the purchase. I think that's super smart. The way the little guides they set up to help you figure out what axle converter, I guess you'd call it, you need to pop into the trainer. That's a smart idea too that I've never seen. And color coding the legs. So
that's really cool that they make it
so smart.
That the actual part
Check
that the through axle comes with. He's got it right on video too. If you're watching on video, know, the cardboard itself that part comes with will measure the width of your the back end of your bike, the two little chain stays. It's called the chain stays for those that don't know what they're called. The width between those, it will measure them for you so you know which one to use. You use whichever one fits in that space for the cardboard length. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's easy. Yeah. This was the through axle one. I used the quick release one already, which is pink because I've got quick release on my bike. But yeah, there's a through axle and a quick release. It worked great.
Eric uses quick release. Eric
on that bike. Release. not the outdoor binge, but and the guide is like substantial. I mean, it's like you don't see these much anymore with products. They're like, hey, take this take a picture of this QR code and you can download it. But they've got a nice printed, like really well illustrated help guide, which again, I think is great.
So do you know what I looked at this and immediately thought of my parents who are Zwifting now. I've just lent them They're on like the snaps, so the sort of wheel on trainers. And
Mhm.
I, was like, oh, you should get a wheel off trainer. It's a lot better. The ride feels a lot better. And they're like, okay, cool. What should we get? And I was like, well, that's you could get this. It's probably about 3 times as much actually. In New Zealand dollars, it's about 1,800 to get a wheel off trainer. And they're like, oh no, we'll just leave that. That's
Yeah.
it. We like it, but we don't like it that much. Whereas this fits perfectly. But I was always kind of like, if they got this, they'd just call me and be like, build it for us because we have no idea what we're doing. And I think this having even that book of instructions, like you said, it's yes, you can sort of scan a QR code and do all of that. But when I look at my parents, they will want that book to actually look through and physically kind of see what's happening and what they need to do and refer back to it. So I think they've kind of captured a really great part of that entry level market of this doesn't have to be super scary. Like even myself, I get parts to build a trainer and go, oh, I don't know bikes well enough to know what to do here. Whereas this, I feel it is completely simplified a process for people who aren't extremely knowledgeable about bikes. So, like I said, initially I was a little bit disappointed, but I think they've kind of really nailed a good position in the market here. I guess another question I had for you, Eric, is I mean, it is going to be disruptive. What are you thinking, in the Wahoo offices or the tax offices now with their wheel off trainer, their direct drives, double the price? I mean, what are they thinking now? Why would you get that when you can get this?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, Wahoo's kicker core is kind of, I mean, this is what it's that's the version of the Zwift Hub that Wahoo has is their kicker core. And what's interesting about that trainer is they've never done a new version of it. It's been, I mean, it's very well regarded in terms of reliability and feel and stuff, but it's still $1,000 trainer that may or may not ship with a cassette. I don't remember offhand the core, but yeah. And then Tax has the Flux. I think it's the Flux X. I get them mixed up. There's a Flux 2 and a Flux S. One's nice, one's not. Uh, but I think they're going to have to drop their prices. They're going to have to do something, and it's going to set the bar for making it simple. Elite did a really good job, I think, with the Sweeto. The Sweeto shipped with a cassette. It was cheap. I think it was, I don't know, 650 bucks maybe retail. So Elite did a pretty good job, but Wahoo, and I think Wahoo's problem is they have the kicker, what do you call it? The wheel on kicker, which
Snap.
used to retail. Yeah, the Snap. That used to retail for I think 550 bucks back in the day, and I think they lowered. I think it's 450 or 400 now. But I mean, they can't make a direct drive trainer that's the same price as the Snap. That's just never going to happen. So they're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, market price wise, that's some pretty big distinction, right? I mean, to jump in at a price point on a direct drive this well, that's directly related to the software that it's running on, owned by. And then there's a little bit of perks around that too. It's gonna be, I think the market's gonna definitely. It's only good for the consumer though at this price range, right? I mean, a lot of work is gonna have to be done to find something that has these kinds of claims. 2.5% accuracy, 1,800 watts max wattage. It can go up to 16% gradients. Flywave 4.5 here. I mean, this is 4.7, excuse me, and then the cassette included. And then I also saw within there you get a little experience within your companion app as well. It looks like
Yep.
that's really specific to the Zwift Hub, so you do get a little more like quality alongside. You get some software quality that comes alongside it too, don't you, Eric?
Yeah, the integration's nice where it's, if you're using Zwift Companion, which I would say probably the majority of Zwifters do or close to that, and Zwift is trying to get more and more people to adopt it. It's it's just a no-brainer. Oh, there's a firmware update. It alerts you to it. Whereas without that, there are so many people out there riding trainers that have old versions of firmware because they never
Oh
open
man,
up
do
the
I need to
manufacturer's
now?
app.
Do I need to update my firmware?
You probably do. You
Oh
probably
my
do.
gosh! Oh man! Ah, yeah.
I
So
just looked. The Kicker Core ships without a cassette for $900. So you think about that. I
Wow.
mean, basically, maybe throw in another $100 to get a cassette to get it installed at a bike shop if you don't have the tools for it. That means it's exactly double the price for essentially the same specs. It's 2% accuracy instead of 2.5. But the Zwift Hub is going to have auto calibration, which the Kicker Core does not. So interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if Wahoo maybe did a firmware update that supported auto calibration for the core. Although again, then it's starting to maybe work into the Kicker's territory that supports auto calibration. But it could be done. It's just a firmware thing. That's all it is.
So then, I mean, we're looking toward October 3rd. We don't really know a whole lot as far as what kind of disruption is going to happen. There's a lot more being announced. We just saw the H4 get announced. I have a feeling more is coming down the road here. So all within this very short period of time. And then October 3rd is the date that these will actually be available. So we'll see them in the wild then, and we'll have an idea come October 3rd of what kind of interaction that this actually has for changing the market when it comes to smart trainers. What I also thought was really interesting when we were looking at this was that they were testing these trainers in-house. They had like an in-house service, or at least a service that they had bought or that they had acquired. Zwift, in eDrive engineering services that were testing the Zwift Hubs on a 24/7 basis, logging 1,300 plus hours, simulating 2 years of hard usage on them. So, I mean, that's pretty crazy amount of testing that's been going on before that they actually launched this.
Yeah, it's it's kind of a cool setup when the way Zwift explained it, where they actually took a sample, kind of a high-end Zwifter, a real Zwifter who does workouts, races, free rides, all the rides, got basically all of that guy's fit file data and fed it into this machine, and they've got 4 trainers just continuously running what this guy does 24 hours a day, trying to break the
Wow.
trainers basically with a high-end guy's power files.
Go ahead, Anna.
I do just want to note as well that it is not pegged for shipment yet to Australia or New Zealand, so we will have to wait a little bit longer, I think. But do you think they will start sort of a global shipping situation?
Well, I've got some interesting news there, in fact. So I got an email yesterday from Jet Black, and they said, and I haven't announced this yet on Zwift Insider, breaking news
Exclusive
here on Wrap.
breaking news
Yeah.
on the Wrap.
So this email explained that Jet Black has been working with Zwift to create the Hub, which they said is just an updated version of their Volt trainer. And Jet Black says, oh, by the way, we are just now announcing that we are going to begin selling our Volt version 2 as well, which is the exact same trainer as Zwift Hub. Oh, and by the way, we're going to sell it for the exact same price as the Zwift Hub. And they'll be selling it in Australia, where Zwift doesn't sell the Zwift Hub. So you'll be able to get the Zwift Hub, basically, but under a different model name. So I've been going back and forth with Zwift going, okay, so what's the deal here? What's the difference between the trainers? Because this is going to get weird. It's going to get confusing. Is
I
the
wanna know if
firmware
there's
different? Are there
non-competes. I wanna
two
know
different
if there's just a
companies
non-
working on two different?
Like, I want to know if there's a
Yeah.
non-compete, or if
Yeah, I asked the same thing. I said, is Zwift
Yeah.
staying out of the Australian market so that Jet Black can, which would kind of make sense. They didn't say that was the case. They just said we're selling to the 3 markets that we are supporting, Zwift says, because basically right now their 3 e-commerce markets are, EU, UK, US, and they're just not selling in other places for whatever, I don't know why. They didn't say there was that agreement, but they also didn't deny it.
Not say it.
Anyway, and it sounds like firmware wise, Zwift and Jet Black are like tag teaming, improving the firmware. They're working together, and the firmware is going to. It sounds to me like basically the firmware is going to be the same on both versions of the trainer. It's just that the Zwift Hub is going to be integrated with the companion app
Mm.
when it comes to firmware updates. So there's going to be that ease of use. But they're definitely, both teams are working on it. Zwift said it's actually been working out great because it's like a 24-hour development cycle because of the time zones. So they're getting that the power accuracy dialed in and the auto calibration. Those are the big two things they're trying to get done in the next, well, before October 3rd with firmware updates. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, that's really interesting as far as the where to sell and whether or not this is essentially like a not an agreement. I mean, nothing's been denied as far as agreements go, but the ability to increase it would play on Eric Min's comment that they're just looking to increase the availability to use the software. And
Yeah,
that it isn't
I
just
think
about
honestly,
selling.
Zwift doesn't care a whole lot if it's a Jet Black branded trainer or a Zwift Hub one, as long as it's easy to use. But here's another interesting thing. At least based on Jet Black's website, they're not doing the pick your own cassette thing. They're shipping it with a cassette, I believe it said, like shipping it with an 11-speed cassette. So that's kind of odd too. Like you'd think you would take a cue from Zwift and go, this is what people need. We're going to do it this way.
Quick
But I don't know.
downsides. You can't really race at the highest level. How many people does that really affect? Okay, like people who are
Not
hanging
very
out.
many.
Not
Not
very
me.
many. Right. So like you can't race it at the highest level. If you do want to go to world championships, the world championship path, I believe that this is not going to be available on that, right?
Because it's a 1% requirement there too.
Yeah, so anything that has that 1% requirement, if there are any community leagues that start popping up, or if there's some private stuff that's going on with events that people are trying to put something together, I'm thinking Underground Series might have that kind of thing going on. So there are places that are somewhat exclusive at this point for that 1% accuracy. But outside of that, in the racing community, I think that this would still be pretty widely accepted. Anna, what do you think about that? Eric? Eric, maybe. Go ahead, Anna.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've seen some chat come into Twitch around, that people had got up in arms about, it wasn't a 1% train. But this isn't what they're after. I mean, we all know that the high-level racing community is a minor part of the Zwift community. So why would you spend extra money building hardware to get to that 1% with all the bells and whistles that doesn't match your mass market? So I think it's not a big deal to me. My dream was actually that they'd kind of released a specific one for races. I don't know if they would do that either. There's other providers who can provide that 1% requirement. But I guess, is that something in the future, Eric? Will they look to, because if they're going down this esport route, like the racing kind of side of things with world champs and esport, and everyone has to be on the same trainer, it must not sit with them super well that they have to use their competitor now to provide that. I don't know about the optics of that, that everyone's got to be on Oahu, which was last year. Would they, spend the money to just make 200, world specific trainers? Is that something they'd do?
I don't think so. If I was on the board, I wouldn't support that. There's just not, where's the return on investment for it, right? I mean, you can't just make 200 trainers for one thing. It's like, it's either mass produced or you don't produce it at all. And I think the market's just too small. I think eventually they will. I think they will release a 1% trainer, but I think they probably have much bigger priorities, and rightly so at this point.
Yeah, the other downside I would say is I really wanted it in real life Tron bike. I that's the other
We all did.
Yeah, I was so looking forward. I had a little spot ready for this with all the awesome LED lights going on. If you haven't checked out how to put cool LED lights in, there's a Zwift Insider article about it. But that was definitely a big letdown for me. And for me being a racer, this is already provided though. This is already provided, and there's been years and years at this point of a pretty intense microscope on that section of the Zwift trainers, the ability to use trainers with Zwift. and what their accuracy might be. And to put Zwift even under that microscope, I don't know about the optics of that even, right? Like, do you want to jump into that space as the software, as the people who are also developing the esport? And I mean, how many conflicts of interest do you want to develop in that, and as well as how many microscopes and how many pitchforks do you actually want coming after you, where you can throw some of those pitchforks at some of the other people who are competing in the space, I would think, Eric.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they'd have to. They already have to get it right with the hub, which is why I've been riding one for almost a month and a half now back there, and it's why I came to them quickly when I noticed a power issue with it. The biggest issue I've seen is it reads a little low when it's cold. So the first 5 to 10 minutes of your ride, it reads low, and that's just a temperature compensation thing. But I came to them and said, "Hey, here's what I'm seeing. You guys are going to want to fix this, because if your trainer isn't at least within the 2.5% accuracy thing, that's bad. That's bad when you're Zwift and your own trainer isn't accurate enough."
Well, that was a huge dive into the trainer world, and there's lots of other things to talk about still as well. Maybe we can just do a quick, that was obviously Zwift Hub. October 3rd is when those will be available. If you want to go check out zwiftinsider.com/Zwift-Hub-announced. You can also find out more about Zwift Hub on Zwift's website and even order one, it looks like. So go and do those things, or at least get notified of when you can order them. Sorry, that was probably a mistake. You can get notified when you can order them is what the little button said. So Tiny Race Series, it's been going on for a couple of months now, I believe it is. And I still haven't been. I said I was going to do one this weekend, and then I couldn't.
Come on, Nathan.
Horrible. I feel horrible about this. I'm going to make that my excuse as to why I'm not higher in the Zwift rankings currently, because it seems like everybody who's high in Zwift rankings is doing the Tiny Race Series, Eric.
Oh man, it's a great way to boost your ranking, because I mean, you think about it, you could do an hour-long race and your result can boost you the exact same as if you do the 15-minute long race, which is actually about an 8-minute long race. Anna, you discovered this. Anna won first place for the ladies in the Bs in time zone 3 last week. I got to type your name into my Zwift Insider Bros. Nice work. But I was looking at your upgrade points, right? You scored, I think 3 of your races, you got, I don't know, 10 to 15 points of a boost, which is huge when you get up near the upper echelon of the rankings. Just getting a 5-point boost is big. So yeah, it's I
went from
great way to
17th 17th in Zwift rankings to 10th after that. So
nice.
Jumped like 7 places. Got ahead of you, missed 14, Katie Loca. So you better come on to me. But yeah,
shots fired in chat as we speak. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, especially for the ladies, those mixed races are a great way to get upgrade points if you want to get up in the upper crust of the ladies' rankings.
Yeah, I went to the B this time around because I found the A's a little like crazy competitive. I talked about the chat last week of the guys going at each other. So I went with the Bs. It was a bit more of a friendly environment for me and a bit of fun. But yeah, these have been awesome. I've been doing them, most weeks, but great prep for, you look at the Worlds formats coming up, a bit more of that sort of knockout style. And yeah, this is... It's hard right now. I always say to everyone, it looks so easy on paper because I read the courses and I go, oh yeah, 5K, cool. I mean, that's all right. And then everyone, I'm over the handlebars, like sucking in air. And I mean, you love it though, right? It's very cool courses that you've designed to. Each week as you go on and go, oh, this is exciting. Like that's a new finish line. So good job on them. It's been really innovative. I've loved it.
Are you doing live streams of these things too?
Interesting.
It looks like you've got a live stream up on here. What's going on? Are you
that's my first one, Nathan. I'm stepping into your territory.
Here? Oh my gosh!
No, if you watch it, you'll see it's pretty rough. I think I even mentioned in there that it's probably some of the worst race commentary you'll ever watch. That was last week because I had a big outdoor ride planned, so I decided I wasn't going to race last Saturday, so I decided to just sit in and talk through the bees. Who, the bees don't get much commentary love anyway, so I watched it, and just talked about the race. It was fun. They're fun
looks like
races to watch too. That's
you do
another
a
thing because
congrats
they're so
to
short.
the winners. Then is this
Yeah.
like a weekly thing then? And like, how do the overall podiums get decided? That was one of my questions
Points.
about just by points. Okay, gotcha.
Just finish points. So yeah, there's a whole, and the points go really deep in the field. Basically, every rider gets points based on their finish position. Yeah, and then it's just tallies up your 4 races.
Ooh,
and that's
this weekend, Railways and Rooftops, Chasing the Sun Race 2, Spirit Forest Race 3, and 2 Village Loops, all McCurry.
Yeah, this is the first all McCurry weekend, and it's some interesting races like that. Railways and Rooftops. It goes up the reverse of the rooftop KOM, which isn't even a segment for some reason. I've never understood
That's
why.
really
they didn't make
windy too. Isn't that one like super
windy?
Oh, that'll be
Yeah.
interesting.
So that's one. I mean, no one's ever raced up the rooftop KOM descent side, basically. So that'll be fun. It ends right
so we
at
get
the
to
KOM.
we get to go set some KOMs. It sounds like challenging the Wednesday
I think
Worlds.
I might have even.
Is that happening?
I created a segment for it.
Oh my gosh!
It links to for this race. I created a Strava segment for that bit because it makes sense. You got to go.
You
set
want
some
the Strava
KOM.
segment? Let's go.
Segment,
Here we go.
yeah.
Personal records.
It's only been up for like 4 days, so you got KOM ability now.
Rooftop, and it's the first race too, so the legs should be fresh.
Yeah.
Now, my question on this too, are people sniping races then? They're getting into race 2 or race 3, and are you requesting that you have to race in succession? Like there would be an option in Zwift, or do you think it would be a cool option, or do you not want that option even? That like to get access to race 2, you have to do race 1, etc., etc.
I thought about it, and I go back and forth. I've heard people complain that there are people sniping it, but if you look at the actual numbers, it's very few. I mean, the fields are at least like the B fields that I've been racing. They change by maybe 3 riders, like from 120 to 117 across the races. So it's not like there's tons of people, I think, jumping in and just sniping particular races, but I'm sure it happens on some level.
I do strategic. It's just strategic sniping. So I look at the courses and I go,
there's that too.
This one's got a color. Yeah, I'm like, this one's got a climb. I'm going to target that one. And the race after is like a mass sprint. So I'm kind of going to not cruise it, but just stay with the pack on that one because I'm not going to beat a whole bunch of dudes in a sprint. I race them all.
Yeah.
I just strategically pick which ones I'll get the best result and go for them. I mean, I guess that's just more the whole point of them, right? You can't I'm better on a hill finish. So that's the one I'm going to go all in, and I won't recover enough for the next one. So I kind of just sit in a bit more on that one.
Yeah, and I try to design them so that there's not one type of rider that's going to win all 4 races. That it's going to be that way, where you're going to have to kind of pick. So yeah, there's some sniping, but I kind of like the idea of it being loose, and there is no way to control it on Zwift Power. I asked James Bailey about it. Like, can I force people to race all 4, and you aren't even you don't even get points? Like, you get disqualified. I said no, there's no way to do that automatically. There could be a whole lot of paperwork to make it happen, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. So 1 power up per. Well, it looks like on some of them. I mean, this is really interesting too, like how you have designed it so that there's different power ups on each. The other thing that I've noticed about this was how are you setting up the finishing of these races? Like they're the virtual banners. Is that what they are then?
Almost always, but it's some of them. I just plan next week's races, and there's a couple of them that are like single laps, like we did downtown Dolphin.
Gotcha.
It depends on the length, but yeah, most of them are custom finish lines, and I have to take my bot out and ride it typically like 3 or 4 times to get it. Well, it depends on the finish. If I'm trying to have like this railways and rooftops, trying to have it end right at that KOM banner, that takes a lot of tests because you got to get it right like within the meter. But but other ones, like I have one that ends. One of my favorite ones was one that ended in London. It ended in the underground. You go into the underground, and it ends in the tunnel, just an arch in the tunnel. So it's super fast lead in. But that one, it just has to be in the tunnel somewhere, right? It didn't have to be meter accurate. So that one was easier. But yeah, it's just a lot of
Are
bot
you able to
testing.
get?
But
Are
I'm
you able
building
to
up a
get it pretty
library so I can
close?
reuse them.
Are you able to get it
Yeah.
pretty close? Just wondering because we've seen with some of Zwift's events, like it's been a little bit off with that virtual banner, and I'm wondering how much testing that
Some
you're
of
doing.
them,
Well, and I know that on
it's all of
Zwift,
them.
after you've gotten
Yeah.
steering, you noticed if anybody has done steering on Zwift and used the steering feature, you start to realize I can cut corners and I actually end up with a much shorter length if I cut every single corner than everyone else that's here. So I can travel less distance but get to the finish line, right? Like, and so I get to the finish line and I just have less distance than everybody else because I was cutting corners. So you have to run that bot a certain number of times depending on what path it's taking automatically from its power output for each section of the course.
Yeah, it seems to be if I do the bot, because I always do the bots in isolation, and it seems to work really well, uh, and stay consistent once I find where that line is. So yeah, I'm able to dial into the meter, so it's to 3 decimal places in the kilometer thing.
Nice.
It just takes some tests, but once I have it, then that course, I kind of lock it in. I have it saved, and I can reuse it down the road. So I'm just kind of building. I have about 25 to 30 routes at this point that I've done,
Can we do a
and
disclaimer to
will. I'm
everybody
actually
that Eric is using bots offline and that like
yes
where how
offline.
yeah, offline, not connected to Zwift in any way, personally on his computer, and there's just a program
Yeah,
running with a bot. It happens to be Zwift. Like, and so there is no interaction of bots in the live game of Zwift being run by Zwift Insider Eric. And
yes.
why do I have
I
to
want to
say
give
that? You
a
want to talk about why I have to say that maybe?
because it's against the terms of service to do it, but Zwift has allowed me to
There
do
we
it with
go.
certain conditions.
Oh, so there's
I
certain
want to give a shout
conditions.
out to.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh yeah, for sure. Shout out to Sweet in the chat. He says, "I am waiting for the first completely downhill tiny race." I am too. I want to do Alpe Zwift. I want to use the pens that they created up there, but they told me that we can't use them yet because there is no route that you can pick that takes you from those pens down the Alpe. Anyway, maybe someday. But Sweet, you'll be happy to hear I've just planned the next 2 Saturdays worth of tiny races, and the 24th, I'm calling it. What am I calling it? I'm calling it Fast Finish Week, and it's all finishes that either end on downhills or end just after downhills. So it's basically a great week for me, and probably not a good week for Anna.
No, I don't know if
Anyway,
I'll do that one.
yeah,
That'd be terrible for me.
yeah.
I
I
love it
had to
though.
plan them well ahead because yeah.
They've been phenomenal. They're a heap of fun. So thanks for that, Eric. It's just been a great race series, and I just love the. We are planning to have James actually on the show in some coming weeks, just to talk about the innovation that's happening in the Zwift racing and event scene. So you seem to be at the forefront of that, and it's been awesome. So thanks, Eric.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and
Yeah, I'm loving it.
last question then. I mean, this is a good one. Anna wrote this one in, and I just wanted to hit that before we take off from Zwift Insider here. But where do you see this is a big one, but there's a lot of announcements happening here. And just from Zwift Insider's perspective, where is Zwift racing going in the next 2 to 3 years? Because there's been so many changes after this summer with what's coming with Grand Prix, with what's happening with Zwift Racing League, what's happening with Zwift Racing individual racing. What is the next 2 to 3, is this going to have an impact? Is it going to have what they're looking for, that turnkey to something new?
Yeah, I think. I think there's a few avenues that Zwift racing is going to evolve in the next few years. One is you're seeing the racing team that you're hearing them talk more and more about the idea of how can we design races that are uniquely esports. So how can they're not trying to replicate an outdoor race. They're trying to create something that's special. It could only be done on a platform like Zwift. I think you're going to see more of that, which you're already seeing it with the UCI Worlds stuff. But I think that's going to trickle down into the rest of the community, and probably trickle up from the community too, with events like tiny races. When the community already has a lot of great ideas, and I think the racing team will see that. I'm sure there's other spots where it's going to evolve as well, like category enforcement. I think it'll be integrated with the companion app. It'll be integrated with a game to where you can see what category you are. You can see why. Just making it a more user friendly experience. Understanding why you're ranked the way you are, and I think you'll kind of see Zwift Power start to fade into the distance some in terms of results. I think eventually you're going to see Zwift results be the results, because that just makes sense. It's silly. It's always been silly that we have to go to a third party website to do it. So having all that stuff built into the Zwift ecosystem in a very user friendly way, where you don't have to opt in and all this silliness, I think that's going to happen as well. So just streamlining it all and making it uniquely Zwift, I guess, would be how I'd summarize where I see it going.
Yeah, those are great insights. Actually, I think 100% on the making its own niche in the thing that is cycling and sports and competition is definitely being begged for, and it's huge innovation with the Tiny Race Series, on top of what's already going down with Zwift Racing League innovating, and then what we see with the Grand Prix. Well, thanks, Eric. I really appreciate you hanging out with us. It's been awesome, and hope to make this a regular feature when all things go. Oh my gosh, what's happening on Zwift? And the Zune becomes soon. And I think that's what we're gonna have to do. When the Zune becomes soon, we get Eric Schlangian to figure out what's going on and why. So, Eric, if you want to check out Zwift
great.
Insider, head on over there. Thanks a lot, Eric. We'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.
Well, Anna, we
he's
talked
great,
forever.
isn't he?
That was great. So
I know.
so awesome. That was deep dive into all things Zwift Hub, and then jumping into a couple of extra topics.
But I feel like I have so much more to ask him about as well. So we'll definitely have him on. I've still got a lot of questions I want to ask him. And he puts in a huge amount of work behind the scenes, because I know as soon as Zwift does an update and they've released a new wheel set or a new bike, for example, within a few hours, he's up there with all the speed tests, ranked the bike. So, I mean, it's a huge ton of work for him to do this, but I know that it's the go-to place. I saw questions coming in from the community, what's the best bike I should ride for the TTT tonight? Look, just honestly, you go to Zwift Insider, you'll see everything there. You just Google anything related to Zwift, it'll pop up the first thing. So I love it. I'm on there all the time looking at a whole raft of different topics. So I'm excited to have him on again.
This week. I'll probably look at it tonight on stream while I'm doing the TTT tonight. So come on over. We'll look at it together.
Exactly. There we go. I'll tune in a bit later while I'm eating dinner.
Well, next up, we've got everybody's favorite part of the show, and that is going to be fashion of the week. Why are we doing this, Kit? What's going on with this kit? Is this the kit? Is this even the right kit?
This is the kit. This is the kit. Okay. So it is. This is my homage to the level 50 kit. So you get this kit when you get to level 50, and as we know, level 50 is now being replaced by level 60. 60 is the new 50. And so I thought I'd just pay homage to level 50. It's no longer the prestigious kit. You'll get something new when you get into those high rankings. And I've been riding it in game at the moment before I have to ride in all my team kit. And yeah, I quite like it. It was just a little shout out. And I've seen actually a few riders in races I've been doing wearing this kit. Obviously, they're just having a little sayonara farewell to level 50 and doing it with the kit choice. And it is actually a nice one. Little rainbow banners on the back, purple, orange, green, and blue, little aqua blue sort of there. Matches a lot of nice bikes. I've paired it here with the Canyon Grail. I was on a gravel race and paired the two greens together, have matched it up some white shoes and white socks because it's a white jersey, black shorts, always top of fashion. So yeah, I like this one. But yeah, it's a shout out to the level 50.
All right, I hope we see a lot of homage to level 50 over the coming weeks. Put your level 50 kits on, everybody, because next thing you know, 51 is going to be all the hype. Whatever we get at 51. I don't even know if we get a kit at 51, but whatever happens at 51, that'll be the thing. It will be.
Yeah.
Well, we have a very contentious garage pick this week. I don't know what Anna was thinking because the Adidas shoes, the Adidas shoes are
Adidas.
Oh, Adidas. Or I don't even think I'm saying it right when I try to say it your way.
You're not. You're saying like some hybrid. But yes, I picked the Adidas shoes. Now look, I got these in my garage. Adidas. I got these in my garage last year or early this year. Love them. They look so good with black socks. The reason I love them though, and I kind of wanted to shout them out, is probably the only thing in my garage that I would go and buy in real life. And I actually looked into buying them. I was so close to getting them. And then I read these reviews that they're really sort of tailored towards that Peloton-y spin class kind of a market. And so if you're trying to do sprints and things, they're a little bit too pliable. And so you're kind of like moving around too much. I was like, oh, but they look so great. I was literally on the website buying them. So this is a kind of shout out to the things in your garage that you would go buy in real life. And I'm not putting it off the table because they just look amazing. And you can kind of get off the bike and walk around a bit easier with them. Compared to your other shoes, but I think that's why they're not super stiff, because I think they're a bit more of a rubbery sole. But in game, amazing. Adidas black shoes. I think you can also change them to be white with black stripes, but I like the black with white stripes.
They're kind of also your like chill around the city shoe then too. I would think if you were gonna get them in real life, you could just hang out and go for I don't know, go hang out around the city. If you're a fixie. I don't know if a fixie would ever. Anyways, I don't know where you're using those. Get them in game.
Yeah, exactly. Go get them in game. Now I have to go do the school drop-offs. We talked with Eric for a very long time, and I loved it. So there's heaps of good stuff in there. But we won't do the rankings today. We'll have a look at which I'm a bit depressed about because I did work really hard to get to level 10 just so we could mention myself on the show. Joking. But we'll come back to the rankings next week, and I'll keep an eye out for any fashion on the field.
We'll have to get a couple next week. We'll have to get a few.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have a look. Yeah. I've got a fairly low-key weekend this weekend, just with ZRL starting next week. I just want to make sure I'm in fighting shape and well-rested. But what are you up to, Nathan?
Deciding on my ZRL team still. Just a shout out to anybody who's looking for, I think I'm riding with OMG. I haven't confirmed I'm riding with OMG, but ZRL. So, but with Schwamagan, which is part of the Grand Prix and real life Grand Prix, which is going to have a lot of the top racers invited to something Lifetime Fitness to put on 6 races across the entirety of the year with $250,000 on the line. I don't get a shot at that, but I get a shot at racing the people coming to the Schwamagan for that as a part of the race series. So big race, not this weekend, but the following. So essentially it's preparing for that. Maybe use the tiny race series for prep, but maybe also go outside and ride my mountain bike a lot. And then ZRL and Wednesday Worlds. So that's what's happening over the next week. Wednesday Worlds is blowing up. I think we had 500 starters like across. We had 127. So if you haven't done that yet, come and check it out. I'll be posting on Instagram. I know you got to go do the kid dropout. So we're going to wrap up the wrap. This has been episode number 8. We will also be uploading this to all places that you can listen to podcasts. We have been live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook for the live stream. If you want to listen to just audio, go ahead and check out the wrap on anywhere that you can download a podcast. As always, everybody, thanks for tuning in and ride on.